Hello and welcome, my spooky little witches and goblin creatures. Welcome to my office. Today I am going to be telling this story about how I got COVID. So I 3 weeks ago, I went on a week-long trip with my partner's family to, where the fuck did we go? We went to New Jersey, okay? And on the way back from that trip, we stopped in New York City for a week. No, not for a week. We were in New Jersey for a week and we stopped in New York City for the day. And when we were in New York City, that evening we saw my partner's brother and his partner, who we had just been on this week-long trip with, but we were ending it in New York City. We had dinner with them, hugs and kisses goodbye, whatever. The next day, we were driving home to Maine, and I was feeling real yucky. I was really tired and kind of had a headache, I had a thought. I thunked a thought to myself. I was like, did I get fucking COVID? But I have had that thought many a time before, many a time over the last 2.5 years. And each time I have been wrong. So maybe at this point I'm like having a little bit of like hubris, a little excessive pride. And we stopped in Portland, which is still about 2 hours away from the city we live in, Bangor. And we were having lunch and I could not eat it. I was feeling so sick. And I also failed to mention, the unwellness was not like, again, I thunked the thought, perhaps I have COVID, but also I had gotten very intoxicated the night before in New York City. So feeling ill and unwell, I was kind of like, okay, this is like kind of par for the course. But by the time we were having lunch in Portland, but I guess it was like 4 o'clock, so it was kind of like evening time at that point. I was like, I don't think I'm hungover. Like, I think I have surpassed and overcome that, and I am just feeling bleh. But also, we had just been having a freaking hoot and holler the last 7-8 days on this vacation, doing all the things in New Jersey. We'd been staying up crazy late, just having a ton of fun with my partner's family. So again, I was like, okay, I'm like rationalizing to myself, like, yeah, of course you're tired. Like, you've cumulatively gotten very little sleep the last week or so. But so I get home and I thought to myself too, like, I should take a COVID test just to be certain. We've got plenty of COVID tests in my house. But when I got home, I actually got home about like 8 o'clock in the evening, and I was, again, so beat down and tired, and I had to work the very next morning. So I was just like, I'm just gonna pass out. I'm just gonna sleep it off and see how I feel in the morning. I'm sure I'm gonna be feeling better, right? Of course, I wasn't feeling better in the morning. So I woke up to having like the stuffiest, juiciest nose, and I was like, but I was so tired. I was so tired, and like I had a really bad headache, but still from the night before, like it had carried over. But like I was like, I'm gonna try to hold off on blowing my nose for as long as possible because I'm so tired. Disgusting, but here I am. in my truth, in my honesty. So I'm like tossing and turning, and this like nose, I'm starting to feel that like I'm like dripping. So I'm like, okay, I need to like get a hold of the situation. So I tear myself out of bed, I clip clomp to the bathroom, and I blow my nose. And nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. It was all blood. All blood. And not like a little bit of blood. It was not like snotty, like bloody snot. It was clots of blood. And the tissue had just been absolutely soaked. So, I blew a couple more times, and like more and more blood is coming out. Like it's like the never-ending story of blood coming out of my nose. And I look at myself, I turn and I look at myself in the mirror, and it's a fucking horror scene. And then I look at the bathroom floor, and I had dripped blood. It was a trail of blood. And again, all the while, I'm feeling that I'm like very unwell. Like I'm feeling like kind of like unsteady on my feet. I'm feeling so out of it and weird and like heavy. And I know too, like I had a fever. And so I was like, again, I've never really heard people, I've never heard people have like a nosebleed being like a COVID symptom, but I knew, like, I know that it was related. I do not get nosebleeds, ever. I've never had a nosebleed before in my life. And so, anyway, I go ahead and I sit down and I take a COVID test. And I'm sure all of you have taken a million like at-home COVID tests at this point in your journey through this pandemic. And so, and you know what I'll say, like, wait 15 minutes. No, it blinged immediately. It was like, yeah, you got it. You got the vid. So, and I at that point have to call out of work, and I'm calling my assistant director to our program because she's on call. And I was telling her, again, when I had that nosebleed thing, before I took the test and realized it was COVID, I was concerned, like, because I was feeling so unwell and this fucking massive nosebleed situation, I was like, am I dying? Like, do I need to go to the hospital? And then I saw that it was COVID, and I was like, okay, cool. Isolation is headed my way. So anyways, and I told her the story too, because I was like, I don't know, like this just scared the hell out of me. I don't know if this is even related and this is too much information, but again, this whole thing has been precipitated by this gigantic nosebleed I just had. And my assistant director was like, oh yeah, actually we had a bunch of people in our house at the adult group home that I work at. A lot of our staff members had gotten COVID the week that I was gone on my vacation. And she was like, yeah, and people were having like symptoms like that. And I was like, that's fucking terrifying. This is not normal. But anyways, I know that it's interesting because so none of our peeps that we went on this vacation with ended up getting it. And we were not in any way distancing, of course, like we were with his family. It was hugs and sharing drinks and all of that stuff. We actually, when we were in New York City that night before we drove home, same deal. His brother took a sip off of and like tried one of my drinks. They did not get COVID. we have been wondering, like, we've been scratching our heads, being like, at what point did we get it? Because my partner tested positive 2 days later. He was feeling off when I tested positive. He was feeling sickly, but his initial test came back negative, and then again, it was 2 days later that he was down and out with a fever and got the positive test. But I tested positive first, and we were just like, where did we get it? At what point? Because how did we not pass it along to any of the people that we were out with? And I know that this newest, I guess like the BA something strain, people have been saying is like the fastest mutating, but also a lot of reports of it being mild. And I'll talk about this in another video, but I did not feel like I had a mild case. I'm actually still having some respiratory issues, and just even as I'm talking right now, I'm kind of like getting out of breath. I have been using an inhaler. I got a rescue inhaler from my doctor because after my days of isolation, I went to the doctor and I had low oxygen, and I was having a really hard time breathing and doing anything. I was having a real time. I couldn't really talk much. I was trying not to talk because talking was getting me so out of breath. I was getting constant headaches. I felt like I couldn't take a deep breath. My breathing was like, I was like working really hard just to get like a shallow breath. And the top of my chest like felt like it was like burning. It was in so much pain. But yeah, we got it. 2.5 years into it, we got it. And I know that there are a lot of people, I would say like the work, like my work culture, from the top down, there has definitely been a mentality of it's inevitable. You're just gonna get it. It's just like at this point they want to treat it basically just like a cold or the flu. There hasn't been a lot of sympathy or empathy about, you know, some of the issues I've been dealing with since, and again, my director has been very much so the mentality. I mean, he, as soon as our company and organization kind of started getting more lax on the masks, he immediately was full maskless going around in our house, which again, I was not of that. I've not been of that belief, okay? About 6.5 million people worldwide have died from it, and hundreds of thousands of young people have died, or we're seeing lots of people have long COVID, and it's not inevitable. We should continue to do what we can to protect ourselves from it, and you know, I'm very concerned about the long-term consequences, and I'm really scared about the fact that I am a 25-year-old who is used to being active and running around, and now I get winded having a conversation, and I get winded walking from my bedroom to my kitchen. I'm sure, well, I'm hoping, I'm really hoping I make a full recovery. I'm sure I will. But I do not think this is normal, and that's just my 2 cents, but I got it. Try to protect yourselves, because once you get it too, your place of work is not going to have any compassion for you. I don't think. I mean, I think that we've seen this, like, right when we first went into lockdown and all that, like, a lot of workplaces, you know, finally giving people the grace and space to say, I'm sick. And, you know, and they didn't want people coming into work if there was any questionability, if you had a sniffle, if you had a cough, if you had, you know, if there was any type of, like, oh, you know, I interacted with my sister and then she tested positive 2 days later. They wanted you to stay home. They gave you that grace and that space to do that, because we did not want this to spread. And now we are in such a, like, and now we've just seen it come full circle, where you will be like, yeah, I was just with someone who tested positive, you know, this morning. And they're like, your place of work, I'm sure, has been, if it's any place like, you know, any of the places me and my friends work at, it has been, all right, mask up. We'll give you a rapid test, and if it comes back negative, whatever. Like, we don't care if, you know, maybe in 2 days you're going to test positive, but for now, you're coming to work. Even if you work with populations who are very at risk, where it could be potentially fatal. I mean, I work in an adult group home, and we have people with serious health issues, and again, our employers do not care. Like, we've just fully come to this resigned, and it comes from the top down, from the government as well. Again, they just discontinued the program for you to be able to freely get COVID tests from the government. You now cannot do that. Why? It is still very important that we have accessibility to COVID tests, and that we can determine if we have it and if we are at risk of spreading it. I do not wish this on anyone. I simply don't. I understand that lots of people do. Amazing, the people that have been able to contract it and they've been asymptomatic. I've known a lot of people who have been asymptomatic, but I've known a lot of people my age who have struggled with recovering. So again, it can go both ways, and you don't need to have pre-existing health conditions for it to really mess you up. And if we can protect people, like if knowing can help us protect someone else, getting my friend sick, my God, I would hate to get any of my family members sick. I would hate to get anyone that I work with sick. I mean, because that's also like, I do not want to sign anyone up to take on any more medical debt or have to take on any medical responsibility. I mean, I have had to go to the doctors. I thought that at one point, and again, I'll make another video kind of continuing on with kind of what happened after I got diagnosed, as soon as I tested positive, kind of my experience the following 3 weeks after. But I did have to go to the doctor because I thought that my COVID had developed into pneumonia, and I had to pay for that. chest x-ray. I had to pay to go to the doctors multiple times. It's expensive. It's an expensive undertaking. And a lot of us will also feel pushed from our employers, right? Like, my job wasn't really taking it as they weren't accepting, oh, it's COVID. They're like, you need to go to the doctors and get like a diagnosis. It's like, it's no mystery what's happening, right? Like, I got COVID. Like, but I had to go to the doctors anyways. And again, all for the best too, right? Like, because then I did find out I had low oxygen and that I needed a rescue inhaler to help open up my lungs. And I'm still using that. I'm still needing it. And even that is not enough. I mean, I've been talking for 20 minutes and I am starting to become exhausted by having to talk so much and project. So I will end it there. But that is my delightful little story about how I finally got COVID. Stay safe out there, my little witches.